Hey, Abhishek. Great to have you in the studio today.
Yeah, nice to be here.
We're super excited to hear your vision on data cloud and the security. So can you tell us what material security does?
Sure. Yeah, material security is basically a security platform for your productivity suite, which is Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. So we help security teams protect those two applications from a variety of threats, and then also help them kind of manage their risk inside those platforms.
Sounds cool. Can we see a demo of it?
Sure. I always like to start actually with just talking about how easy it is to even get started with material. So every single one of our customers gets a single tenant instance, which is a big part of the Snowflake story as well, as we'll get into later. But as a security product, it's really important that data privacy is sort of prominent in our product. And so every single customer gets a single tenant instance, and they get started by simply enrolling a Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace tenant. And it's all via API, like I was saying. So it's as simple as kind of enrolling here, you get an API grant request, and then you're off and running with material. So that's the first thing that I just wanted to highlight. It's very, very, very easy to get started. Once we are started, what material starts doing is it actually starts using the APIs of those native platforms, whether it's Microsoft or Google, to start really interrogating the instance for all sorts of things. We start syncing content, communication, we start syncing settings, we form a structured model of basically your entire environment. And the very first thing that we do, back to your question about challenges that we help solve for companies, is we start creating lots and lots of what we call risk reports. So these reports basically help security teams answer questions that you would think are very easy to answer, but are actually very difficult to answer about their environment. So everything like which accounts might not have MFA enabled, which accounts have MFA bypasses, things like, is there a Google account that has set up auto forwarding of all corporate mail out of the environment? Or even if someone is doing manual forwarding of work email to personal accounts. So these are, like I said, difficult questions about the posture of their environments, the security posture that we help assess in a very, very short amount of time. And all of this is being powered under the hood by this data platform that we have started syncing content and communication into. We're essentially running queries all the time on this type of content.
And those reports are all out of box, come with material.
That's right. They all come out of the box and they start populating instantly as soon as you start integrating those tenants that I mentioned. These reports are very simple things like what I've been showing, but they can be very complex things as well. So one of the things that we do, for example, is we look for sensitive content that is sitting inside archives of mailboxes. One of the biggest things that is really hard to protect in data breaches is unstructured data.
Can you give an example of like sensitive unstructured data you're protecting here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, think about your own email for a second. You've got financial transactions, you've got PII, personal data, you've got invoices, you've probably, got all sorts of different sensitive communication. And there have been over and over many, many data breaches where that's the target that attackers are after because it's so sensitive, whether for monetization purposes, whether for reputational harm. So it's a really important piece of crown jewel that typically is very hard to even get visibility into. So the first thing that we're doing is simply helping you understand what sensitive content exists. And the kind of list goes on and on. We can actually start using email data to infer all sorts of things about the environment. So for example, let's say you were a CISO and you just want to understand which applications are being used in your company. Well, historically, what you would do is try to put something that's examining your network traffic. You can't do that anymore because everyone's working from home. You might try to, have everyone use the same browser, but you can't do that anymore because people are accessing things from their phone, they're signing up for services. The one thing that is common, though, is email. Every application on the internet, when you sign up for it or do something, it emails you. So if you can start understanding this data set and process it, you can actually answer questions like what apps are being used inside my company. We get all of this visibility, and that really is the first step because it now helps understand what are the risks that exist and tries to give you very actionable recommendations on what to do about certain types of risk.
Is that a recommendation powered by certain kind of like machine learning models or like rule-based? What is the secret source behind the scene for that?
Yeah, it really depends on the type of risk. Certain times it's as simple as, hey, you have this door open, please close it. So like there's a setting that you may have left unconfigured. Other times, you're right, it's a little bit more sophisticated. Like, we're noticing this behavior, so we might recommend that you enable a certain configuration that you didn't have. But let me show you where this gets really, really interesting. So I have all this sensitive content in a mailbox, and just to put that into perspective, I mentioned we started the company out of the election hacks in 2016. We probably all remember it was like the Hillary campaign chairman. He had all his email hacked, put on the internet, and the internet had a sort of a field day. This kind of similar thing happened with Sony Pictures, with HBO. Basically, email ends up being this really, really important data set. What we can start doing is actually not just give you visibility into this risk, but actually start doing something about it. And that's where Material goes kind of beyond visibility and actually starts helping you mitigate some of these risks. What I want to show you is how we actually protect this sensitive content inside a mailbox, because it's one thing to get the visibility. It's an entirely different thing to actually do something about it. And so you'll notice in this inbox, which is just a regular Gmail account, it could be an Outlook account, that there's a bunch of messages, but some of them have this fancy sensitive message on them.
Do I have to tag those myself?
You don't have to tag it on your own. Material goes and classifies this content for you. Users can also tag on their own, but they hardly ever do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, so Material goes back historically through the entire mailbox, and it'll look for things that it thinks are sensitive. And as I mentioned earlier, this could be financial documents, it could be personal information, it could be healthcare related, whatever we think is sensitive. But once we find something that is sensitive, what happens is Material actually does something really interesting, which is that it can redact that message entirely out of the mailbox. And the threat model that we're worried about here is if an attacker was to access my account somehow, maybe they compromised MFA, maybe they got through with a malicious Chrome extension or an OAuth application. There are various ways into an account, and a lot of the recent breaches show that nation-state actors in particular will get through. But once someone is through, what they're after is the actual contents inside the email.
So this is an additional door to protect those information.
That's right. It's kind of a defense in depth mechanism. And so what's happened here is I've accessed the account as the bad guy, but I haven't actually gotten access to this message. But we all kind of hoard email for a reason, right? We might need it for our jobs. We might need to access some old message. So Material doesn't remove the ability to access this message. It just makes you challenge and prove that it's actually you before you can access it. And to do that, we leverage whatever identity provider a company is already using. So I'm just going to show you how that works. If I click retrieve message here, what's going to happen is Material is actually integrated in this case with Okta, and it is prompting me to prove that I'm actually me trying to retrieve this message. So I'm going to do that for a second. And so I just got the Okta push on my phone. I'm going to approve it. Now, if I had said no, this is an incredible signal for a security team. It means someone's in my account trying to retrieve a message that wasn't me. It's an immediate signal that they can leverage. But
there are going to be notifications sent to them.
Yes. But in this case, I said yes, and you can see the whole message is back. And that is really the kind of beauty of one of Material's defense in depth protections, which is you don't have to keep all of these sensitive messages inside a mailbox accessible to an adversary, but you can still let users access them when they need to.
It's super powerful.
And this is, just one of the different capabilities that gets unlocked when you can have this kind of rich API access to environments. The other thing I want to show you, though, is something that is kind of more traditional email security, right? And so when people think about email security, one of the things they really have to worry about is very sophisticated inbound attacks like phishing, like BEC, like social engineering. So another thing that Material does is it just looks for these kinds of attacks because it's constantly syncing all content that's arriving inside a mailbox, and it's able to flag things that may have gotten past a traditional defense. Here you can see kind of some examples of attacks that Material has discovered. And if I click into some of them, you can see there's a bunch of tools that analysts at a security team would use. So, things like they can examine kind of the headers, they can examine which message was actually flagged, why we thought it was bad. Mm-hmm. And we'll even look for things like similar messages to this mailbox across the entire environment that may have also gotten through. And
it is for the whole company's mailbox database.
This is for the whole company, because one of the things that often happens is one user might report a message, for example, and then you have a security team member who has to listen to that report, look for anything else similar that someone else may have gotten but not reported. Material will automate a lot of those actions. It'll also proactively find things that are very sophisticated that get through traditional defenses.
Very powerful.
The last thing I'll show you is something that's actually very, very straightforward. Imagine you're a security team or an IT team. A message has come into your environment. Maybe it's someone that accidentally shared something to the whole company that they weren't supposed to, and you get this urgent request, which is like, hey, can you please just delete this message for everyone? shockingly, doing that using the native tools in Google or Microsoft would be really, really hard. In Material, it's as simple as coming to our search and actually just going ahead and typing whatever search you want using a variety of search operators, just doing kind of what you would expect in any kind of search. So let me just show you how this works. And this is a real-time search across your entire email environment. Now, you have to have the right roles in our product, obviously, to do that. But for any type of threat investigations, for any type of HR requests or forensics, this becomes an incredibly important incident response tool. I'll just take a second to highlight how everything we've been doing is actually powered by Snowflake. By this point, it's probably pretty clear that a lot of how Material works is leveraging data from the cloud office, whether that's Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we're syncing all of these logs. Where are we syncing them to? We need a place that is going to be very fast to query, that is going to be economical to query, and where we can create both structured and unstructured data and handle it in a graceful way. So you probably see where I'm going with this. That's Snowflake for us, right? And so customers can actually deploy Material in such a fashion that everything, all of the data we're syncing is in their Snowflake instance.
So you're talking about the connected model.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, in Material here, I'll just go and show you in this environment, I've actually got an integration with Snowflake, and Snowflake is acting as the data platform for the whole app. So everything in Material is being powered by Snowflake. If I jump over here really quickly to an actual Snowflake UI, that search query that we just ran a few minutes ago, that's right here. It's just different queries that are actually in Snowflake. So we're literally, when you go run a search query in Material, we're literally compiling it into a Snowflake query and running it on the Snowflake data platform.
And it's running on your customer's Snowflake account.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Thanks so much for sharing the demo. It's so powerful to see it's not only power the insight, but also driving actionable item for the end users that really help them to force a stronger security posture. So for people who want to learn more about the material security, where should they get started?
They should just head to our website, material.security. We've got tons of information on there, and I like to joke that it tends to be better than most companies' data sheets in that it actually describes what the product does.
Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us today, Abhishek. We appreciate your time, your insight, and your vision on this.
Yeah, it was great being here. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. To watch the full conversation, please check the link in this description of this video. To learn more about companies are building on top of Snowflake, go to developers.snowflake.com and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.